Today, we are starting a brand new series, Modern Thinking Tools. Let's begin with the first module, your fundamental worldview. What kind of world are we actually living in? Before we talk about methods, we need a worldview. You can choose your values and your outlook on life to a large extent, but your worldview is different. It depends on how much you understand reality. Because the world was not created according to your will, I've selected 6 foundational principles of worldview. Let's align on them first. These 6 ideas will serve as the foundation for everything that follows, the most valuable understandings of our world today, and the key to building your own alpha advantage. In this lecture, we start with the first one, the first principle of the world. The first principle is the most fundamental assumption, the starting point of all reasoning. It's something you don't argue with. You accept it. If you had asked me 10 years ago, I would have said the first principle of the world is the laws of physics. Everything is determined by physics. Chemistry follows physics. Biology follows chemistry. Psychology follows biology. Sociology follows psychology. That's all true. But you might still wonder, is there something even deeper beneath the laws of physics? Physicists have long suspected that there may be infinitely many possible universes, each with its own set of physical laws. So why does our universe happen to have these laws? Modern physics, no matter how advanced it becomes, is still roughly built on 3 pillars. Special relativity, which describes motion at larger scales. Quantum mechanics, which governs the microscopic world. General relativity, which explains gravity. But is there something fundamentally special about this structure? In 2020, one of the most original thinkers of our time, Stephen Wolfram, launched the Wolfram Physics Project, trying to derive all of physics from deeper rules. He proposed a concept called the Roolyad, that entangle the limit of all possible computations. In simple terms, it represents the space of all possible physical laws, and our universe, just a tiny slice within it. To reach something truly fundamental, Wolfram assumes that space and time are not continuous. Space is made of discrete points. Time advances step by step. So the question becomes, what constraints must a universe satisfy to produce the kind of physics we observe? The answer is narrative. What is a narrative? Simply put, it's a coherent description of a sequence of related events. A story. For example, I walked into a room, picked up a bun on the table, ate it, and became full. That's a narrative. Sounds trivial, right? But we impose some very non-trivial requirements on narratives. First, events must follow a coherent order. You enter the room before picking up the bun. Things must happen in sequence. That means your universe must have time. Second, events must have clear causality. You feel full because you ate the bun, not the other way around. And this causal order must be consistent for all observers. Otherwise, we couldn't agree on anything. Physicists will tell you, to preserve causality and ensure all observers are equal, your universe must obey special relativity. Third, for narrative to be meaningful, we want the past to be fixed, the future to be uncertain. If the past weren't fixed, we couldn't learn, assign responsibility, or build models. But if the future were fully determined, life would feel like watching a movie. No suspense at all. So, how do we keep the future uncertain? That's where quantum mechanics comes in. At the macroscopic level, events are inherently probabilistic. You can't predict exactly when an atom will decay, or which path a photon will take. But once something happens, it becomes definite. Still, that's not enough. We also want gravity, because gravity creates structure. Without it, particles would just drift randomly in space. Not much of a story. Gravity pulls matter together, forming stars, planets, and stable systems that last long enough for stories to unfold. That's the role of general relativity. So in simple terms, special relativity provides causality. Quantum mechanics provides imagination. General relativity provides the stage. You might tweak the parameters, but without these three elements, there would be no narrative universe. If you believe in God, you might say the universe was designed this way so that narratives could exist. A more scientific view is this. There are countless universes. Most of them don't support coherent narratives, and in those universes, no intelligent beings emerge to understand anything. We are simply lucky to exist in one that does. I once asked GPT to independently derive a theory behind physics. It wasn't as elegant as Wolfram's work, but it arrived at a similar insight. The lowest semantic condition for existence is definable phenomena and preservable records. In plain English, narrative. So I would argue, narrative is more fundamental than physics. It is the true first principle of our universe. Because of narrative, because you're constantly telling yourself stories, you have consciousness. Current AI systems don't. They are trained once and then deployed. They don't accumulate lived experience. They don't build an ongoing narrative. So, for now, we say they are not conscious. Even your sense of self exists for the sake of narrative. If there's a story, there should be a narrator and a protagonist. That's the self. Philosopher Daniel Dennett called it the center of narrative gravity. The self is not a thing. It's a construct. Narrative doesn't exist because of you. You exist because of narrative. Narrative has three key functions. First, prediction. When you connect events with causality, you build a model of the world, and that model lets you act. You reach for a glass because you predict it will quench your thirst. You keep working because you believe effort leads to reward. Your brain is constantly predicting. When predictions fail, you experience surprise. Neuroscientist Carl Friston calls this the free energy principle. The brain minimizes surprise by constantly updating its internal narratives. Second, meaning. While logical essays feel harder to read, because stories have protagonists, intentions, emotions. The moment you hit someone's goal, you start caring whether they achieve it. That's where meaning comes from. Your values, your purpose, they are all rooted in the stories you tell yourself. Third, coordination. Humans can cooperate at massive scales because we share collective narratives, things like nations, money, companies, laws. None of these exist physically. They exist because we believe in them. This is the core idea of historian Yuval Noah Harari. A company isn't its buildings, capital, or employees. It's a shared belief. Money has value because everyone agrees it does, even though physically it's just paper. In short, beliefs that drive actions, the direction of actions, and even actions themselves, are all built from narratives. So here's a key takeaway. Don't just list facts, turn them into a narrative. Only then can you trigger action. If you're leading an army and you only present raw data, troop numbers, terrain, weather, people will be confused. But if you say, victory depends on cutting off the enemy's supply line before sunset, suddenly everything makes sense. People not only understand, they start thinking with you. We don't respond to facts. We respond to narratives. Entrepreneurs need stories to raise money. Investors demand them. Stock prices are driven by confidence, and confidence comes from narratives about the future. Economist Robert Shiller even proposed narrative economics, the idea that viral stories drive economic behavior. Yes, sometimes we overreact to narratives, and facts do matter, but we don't make decisions based on raw facts. We make decisions based on the stories we construct from them. Narrative is our interface with reality. And here's the most important point. All narratives are subjective. At every moment, countless stories are happening around you. Sunlight, airflow, plant growth, insects moving, market shifting, news playing. Why do you focus on one narrative instead of another? That's your choice. Even the same fact can support different narratives. A glass half full or half empty. A company's strong performance can mean future growth. or overvaluation. Language itself is constantly reshaping narratives. Decline becomes negative growth. Unemployment becomes flexible employment. Suffering becomes grit or motivation. Some call this linguistic corruption. But from another perspective, it's simply choosing a narrative frame. Narratives define your objective function. Most of the time, we live inside narratives designed by others. But you can step out. You can choose your own. Your boss says, low pay and long hours now, but we're building a great future together. That's a narrative. You can accept it. Or you can say, my goal here is to gain experience and then leave. Stepping out of imposed narratives is a fundamental awakening of modern life. There is a line from the film Her Story. Who decides what better even is? Who's the judge? Why can't things get messed up? How bad could it really be? Then let's stop playing their game. But that's not the end. You can also create narratives for others. You can compete for narrative power. That's a more advanced tool. We'll get there later. To summarize, a narrative is a structure that connects events, real or imagined, through time, goals, meaning, identity, or stance. At its core, it embeds causal relationships that guide action and regulate emotion. The level of tools you can use depends on the narratives you tell yourself and the ones you tell others, and all I hope is you gain just a little more agency over your own story. That's it for today's content. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.